Chords are mostly played with the root in the bass, the lowest sounding note in the chord. For example, C major will typically be played with C in the bass, A minor with A in the bass. But what if we were to change the voicing of the chord so a note other than the root was in the bass? Simply changing the bass note of a chord can completely change its sound and even its implied function within a chord progression. Let's start with open C major. As you probably already know, the standard fingering puts the C root in the bass position. But we can change that bass to a G simply by moving our third finger to the string below. The chord now sounds a lot less resolved, as if it needs to move somewhere. This new voicing would be written as C major / G, often called a slash chord. The note after the slash tells us which note has replaced the root as the bass. You could also say that the bass is the fifth of C major, as G is a perfect fifth interval in relation to C. When the root is on the A string, such as with C major, the fifth is always on the same fret on the string below. You'll often hear finger pickers alternate between root and fifth as the bass. For example, this root fifth bass alternation is a staple sound in bossa nova music. We can also apply the same fifth bass to other open chords. And don't forget minor chords. Now, earlier I mentioned how this fifth bass chord feels like it wants to go somewhere. Because the bass is now in the fifth, it's common to hear a movement to the fifth chord in the scale, also known as the dominant. All we do is build a dominant seventh chord on that fifth bass. For example, going back to C major, its fifth bass of G would often become the root of G major. D major / A moving to A7. A minor / E moving to E7. So using an alternate bass isn't just about changing the sound of the chord. It often has a leading effect, a gravitational pull to a preceding chord on that bass root. Take a listen. So you could say this fifth alternate bass has a predominant function. That is, it creates a strong pull to the dominant or 5 chord. You can find more ideas for using this alternate bass in chord progressions on the lesson page. See the link in the description. Let's move on to another common alternate bass, the third of the chord. The most common application you'll hear of this in songs that use open chords is over D major. All we do is move the D bass to F sharp, 6th string, 2nd fret. Let's take a typical chord progression: G major, D major, E minor, C major, also known as a 1-5-6-4 progression. If we use the alternate bass in D major, the 5 chord, we create more of a leading bass movement from G major to E minor. Here's another example of using the F sharp bass over D major in a 2-5-1 progression. We can also use the major third as the bass over chords such as C major. Since the third of C major is E, the bass can be played on the open E string. And let's not forget minor chords. This time we put the minor third of the chord in the bass. Finally, we can experiment with placing the 7th of the chord in the bass. For example, we could use a minor 7th as the base of our major and minor chords. To find the minor 7th, simply move the root of the chord down one whole step. Usually, the movement to the 7th bass is used after starting the chord with the root in the bass. The movement has a destabilizing effect on the chord. Take a listen to this example with D major. We can also use a major 7th in the bass, which can be visualized as one semitone or fret down from the root. The major 7th is typically used as a passing tone, which means we use it as part of a larger melodic passage. Explore alternate bass and slash chords in your songwriting. Don't substitute every chord you play with an alternate bass, but the more you play around with it, the more intuitively you'll begin to use it. As always, visit the lesson page for diagrams and more examples of how you can use these chords in progressions. Cheers.